agencies, be able to come in and look and see, are you doing what you're supposed to? Or are you lumping everybody together and not giving them exactly what they need? Because that's a lot of what I seen was a lot of just doing processes, not really assisting the individual, just to show compliance. So you would be continuously be able to reapply for that grant or continue to get those federal monies because you've been able to show that you do this. Not because I've done the work, but because I've completed enough processes. And so there was little accountability as far as how to make sure that this person is actually getting the services that they need once they're returned to the community or once they've stabilized.
Okay, great. So the question I have is, how does the wider community get access to these documentation of best practices and processes?
It's open records. Open records.
Or open through the open records. But for example, the best practices, as you said, for someone with a given condition, that there's written documentation of what the best practices are for each particular condition. Open records. So where do we start in accessing that information?
I would say think about my experience at Cabinet for Health and Family Services.
Okay.
You can do an open records request and get some information from the cabinet as far as a documented history of situations that persons have gone through. And in that file is going to have a background information of what substances that person abused, what services were offered, what was done in order to combat that problem. All that information is contained right there. And also along with that is what the agency did in order to address that issue.
Okay.
Person was referred here. That person had this assessment. This person did this.
Okay. But in terms of, I also was thinking in terms for the community, in terms of what does those medical best practices look like? Where do we assess that? Since we're not medical practitioners per se, but perhaps maybe a community organization that does want to hold people accountable, where we could say, hey, these are the best practices that's on record, and this is what this person from their open records, is supposed to get, and we see they didn't get it. I mean, so yeah, where do we have that access, those medical best practices, so that we know what they should look like?
I think that in order to, what it would look like successfully is maybe some like a citizens review or some type of board that would be able to look inside, especially like publicly funded institutions, to be able to look at data, to be able to look at outcome, to be able to see what's effective and what's not been effective. Because I mean, and to be honest, there is just a lot of monies, that are allocated toward chemical dependency, and just making sure like a checks and balances. And with, there's, with grant monies, you have to show that you've been able to do what it is that you said that you were going to do. That information should be readily available in order to be able to check compliance. But I feel like it would be helpful just to have like a review board of especially minorities and brown people, minorities that have been directly impacted. No community has been impacted like brown and Black and brown communities. And so being able to have a board that would be able to do like a check and review. Let's see what happened with this as a whole, because the system is just one big funnel. It funnels, from youth all the way, through the chemical child protective services, all through adult corrections, all through the mental health field. It's just one big funnel of information. And there has to be some way to connect all that information together going forward.
Yes, I certainly think that that is an excellent idea that you present about creating citizen review boards for all of these different agencies and their processes to review. And beyond this presentation, I would love to connect with you and frame what that looks like. And I know we have someone with a question. Let's see how we can get to that. I believe it's Kabira. Could you go ahead and ask your question, please?
Hey, yes. So in order for somebody, I guess, to get diagnosed, they have to go through an agency or get hospitalized, either outpatient or inpatient.
Yes, that initial assessment will look at all areas of your life, the presenting problem, what was the tipping point, what brought you there. And then there's information gathered about first use, how frequent, how often, the areas of your life that it's impacted. So there's takes about an hour to get through all that information. And then at the end of that, it is determined, diagnoses of what that is. And then the doctor reviews that information, and he agrees with that. And then he sees you further. Once you're treated, if you're treated on an inpatient, then he'll look at, all those areas of your life, what it is that you've gone through, what can help be done to assist you medically, as far as if it's medically assisted treatment or if it's a cognitive approach. So you're diagnosed at that initial stage, given a provisional diagnosis. And then when you get in, the doctor evaluates you further.
Okay, and then my next question, I have an older child that has ADHD, so I was asking that question for the generalization of other people on here. But say you have somebody that's in denial, and of course that's the first step, is accepting. But say you have somebody who is an alcoholic, has multiple number of DUIs, but won't go get help. But then the courts grant custody of a child to them with this history. And now that child is in the foster care system because this person gave up this child because of their own problems. How do we protect those people and get help for the individuals that are in denial, but we see that they need help? Like,
And that is, one of the cornerstones of chemical dependency in treating individuals is that person has to want to get help.
right.
If they do not want to get help, you're limited as far as what you can do. There are ways in which people get pressed into getting help, and then they're kind of forced to. Some people never get to that piece and mask it. I mean, the consequences will come.
Right.
They will surely come, but some people are able to, escape those consequences longer than others. If the people around that person want to press that person to get help, you can do what we call an intervention, in which your trained LCADC would come and sit down with that family and come up with, this is the bottom line. This is, as far as we're going to go with this person until they get help. Each person has to come to, each member of that family has to come to a, end of the road thing with that person, with that addict, and say, this is my bottom line. I will not let you, further destroy yourself and take me with you emotionally. And so when working with a trained professional, that person can, that family can confront that individual about their denial and force them to a place to get help. If that is not something that's conducive, you could, if that person has a mental health disorder and you see that they are a danger to themselves or danger to other people or in an altered mental status, then it is possible for you to go get a mental inquest warrant and have a psychiatrist evaluate them that way.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I sent this info, obviously talking about myself, I sent this info to my younger siblings because it's my mom I'm speaking on, and it's resulted into me and my sister no longer speaking to her to keep our boundaries up and keep our family safe. But now our little brother, who is 25, is dealing with the same things. So yeah, I just text them and asked them how they felt about doing an intervention with our mother and really getting her some help, because my kids miss her. Like, it's just, and I want her to get help. Like, I miss my own mom, but I can't let her, because she's in denial. You know what I'm saying? So I greatly appreciate your feedback and this
It's
session
about
today.
that person has to hit rock bottom,
Yes.
has to want something different for themselves. And sometimes, seeing the loved ones and, really hearing the impact that you've caused them can be, what, triggers that I need, that next stage of what we call contemplation, where maybe I do need to do something different. And so hopefully she reaches out, she accepts your help and accepts your love, and hopefully you work with someone that's able to coordinate all her systems of treatment so she can leave that moment, because that's another important part of intervention, is that you have all those things mapped out, where she's going to go,
Yeah.
who's going to be a part of her recovery. And so it takes some planning about what's those next steps, what's going to happen. And also a time for the family as well to reach out, because we sometimes can, as family members, take on different roles with that substance abuser. We can become the enabler. We can come the person, the scapegoat of all that. And so we all need to heal from that once a family's gone through that. And so it's also, while that person's getting help, it's also a chance for that family member to reach out for mental health services to deal with their own issues as well. Because you say your brother's dealing with those same issues.
Yes.
And so this would be his chance, to address it all, to get it all out there. So I do pray for you going forward in your family that it's restored.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any other questions, comments for Kendra? Well, Kendra, I want to get back to your wonderful, wonderful idea about citizen review boards. And I am wondering if, for the moment, you could articulate, I don't know, what that might look like.
I think that it would, if you had a multidisciplinary set of people, and also,
Could you I'm sorry,
Right.
could you be very specific in naming some of those disciplines that you think should be at the table in forming this review board?
I definitely think, just starting at the bottom, I think that there should be individuals that, that have had that services provided to them through the system.
Okay.
I think that there should be mental health professionals. I think that there should be child advocates. I think that there should be professionals from the criminal justice field. I think that there should be people from just the local community, just that maybe from a different profession that has nothing to do with system, just to get another viewpoint.
Uh-huh.
Uh, Corporate, it's good to reach out to corporate America to be able to figure out how they can help in this fight, because it affects us all. When you think about substance abuse, when you think about the destruction that it causes in the community, it's about rebuilding communities from scratch sometimes. And so the more heads that are at the table to form a board of that nature would be more beneficial, because then you'd have multiple eyes, multiple perspectives that would be able to look at information, be able to disseminate it. And I think definitely someone with federal knowledge of systems, programs, how they're supposed to work, and what compliance is. And I say that because I remember when we had a huge policy change within the Department of Corrections, and it was huge. And if we did not get into compliance, then the whole state was going to lose just a whole lot of money. And so they called in someone from another state, another university from another state, that came in and shipped us into compliance, and was able to show the government, even though if they were not doing it, was showing that at least it appeared as they were doing it. And
Mhm.
so they were able to, continue to keep those funds. And so that's why I say it's important to have a person that has that knowledge of what compliance looks like. So just a panel of people, just diverse, that have just a working knowledge of systems and how they're supposed to work, and compliant with policy and procedure.
Well, thank you so much. That is, you've given Louisville community and other communities that will be watching this on Facebook and other social media platforms. You've given us a template from which to work, which to gather the people at the table to hold accountable the processes, the procedures, and the accountability. And I also hope penalties associated for non-compliance. So you've given us a template for how we can gather resources and strengthen ourselves to fight in a very critical area for our own healing. So thank you so very much for your wonderful and in-depth insight to the problems, and for offering us a wonderful, wonderful solution that we can begin to mobilize around and work on establishing. So thank you so very much for being with us today. And I would just like to close if there are no other questions or comments. And I certainly feel that my opening statement about speaking into the universe are words, in that they will go out and accomplish the task that we sent them forth to do. I certainly feel that today that has happened with your presentation. We wanted to talk about healing of chemical dependency And certainly our words have come back to us empowered, because you have given us a means and a method of empowering ourselves to go address this problem. So thank you. And may we go forth in this day, um, really seeing the face of God in all that we meet and who we meet, and that we can uphold the dignity of everyone today. So thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Okay, everyone, have a great day. And we'll see you again tomorrow
Thank
on
you.
the Black Lives Matter Healing Hour. Thank you. Goodbye.
Have a good one.